Something is brutally attacking wild burros in Southern California, and investigators don't believe it's a predator. In a quiet stretch of canyon near Riverside, animals are being found with horrific injuries, deep gashes, torn flesh, wounds so severe that some have had to be euthanized. This isn't random, and it isn't natural. It's happening again and again and again. So often that locals have given the area a name, the Triangle of Death. Now, a $50,000 reward has been offered to find whoever is responsible, because someone out there is hurting these animals, and until they're caught, the attacks may not stop. For generations, wild burros have moved quietly through the hills and canyons of Southern California. At dusk, they appear along the edges of the road, pausing for a moment before slipping back into the brush. To many people in Riverside County, they are simply part of the landscape. But their story goes much deeper than that. These burros are descendants of animals brought west more than a century ago, used by miners and settlers to carry supplies across unforgiving terrain. When those early operations disappeared, many of the animals were left behind, and somehow they adapted. They learned where to find water in a dry and often hostile environment. They navigated steep canyon trails. They survived, generation after generation, until now, because something has changed in these hills, and the change has been violent. It started quietly, one injured burro, then another. At first, it was easy to assume these were isolated incidents. Wild animals get injured, accidents happen. But then the calls kept coming, again and again and again. And slowly, a pattern began to take shape. Rescuers arriving on scene began to notice something deeply unsettling. The injuries weren't typical. They weren't clean. They weren't consistent with how predators normally kill. Instead, they were chaotic. Severe trauma to the hindquarters, deep tearing wounds, injuries that don't immediately kill, but left the animals suffering. Some burros were still alive when they were found, barely. Others had already collapsed. And in some cases, there was nothing left to do but end their suffering. That's when the fear began to spread. Because this didn't look like nature. It looked like something else, something deliberate. As more cases appeared in the same general area, residents began calling it something that captured exactly how it felt: the Triangle of Death. A stretch of canyon where burros were being found injured over and over again. Not miles apart, not randomly scattered, but concentrated, repeated, predictable in the worst possible way. At the center of the response is a sanctuary known as DonkeyLand. For them, these calls are no longer unusual. They're routine. A report comes in, an injured burro is spotted, and within minutes, volunteers are heading into the canyon. Sometimes they find the animal quickly. Sometimes it takes hours. Tracking movement, following signs, hoping they're not too late. And sometimes they are. For the animals that can be saved, the process is intense. Transport, emergency care, long recoveries. And for some, a permanent life in sanctuary, because returning to the wild is no longer possible. But even for the survivors, the scars remain physical, and something harder to see. What makes this situation even more disturbing is that it may not be new. In recent years, wild burros in the same region have been found with arrows lodged in their bodies. Not accidents, not misunderstanding. Deliberate acts. Broadhead arrows designed to cause maximum damage. One young burro survived only because rescuers reached her in time and rushed her into surgery. And investigators noticed something important. The arrows used weren't all the same. Different colors, different types, suggesting more than one person may have been involved. And yet, no one was caught. Now, with these new attacks, the question is impossible to ignore. Is this connected? Is this escalating? Or has this been happening longer than anyone realized? As the situation worsened, the community began to respond. At first it was concern, then anger, and then action. People began donating, trying to help, trying to make a difference, trying to stop whatever was happening in that canyon. The reward grew quickly, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, until it reached $50,000. A clear message. Someone knows something, and now there is a reason to come forward. Because these burros are not invisible, they are part of daily life. People see them on morning drives, watch them grazing near the edges of neighborhoods, recognize them individually. And now, some of those same animals are gone, or worse, found injured. Which raises another concern. How many cases haven't been found? How many animals wandered off and were never seen again? This is no longer just a wildlife issue, it's something deeper. Because cruelty like this doesn't exist in isolation, it reflects behavior, intent, and risk. Not just to animals, but to everything around them. Wild burros are protected under federal law. They are considered living symbols of the American West. Harming them is a crime. But laws don't stop someone who believes they won't be caught. And right now, whoever is responsible hasn't been. So the investigation continues. Authorities are asking for information. Rescue organizations remain on alert. And the community is watching more closely than ever, because the next call could come at any time. As the sun sets over the canyon, the burros began to move again, quietly, carefully, following paths they've known for generations. They don't know what's happening. They don't know they're in danger. They only know to stay with the herd. Keep moving, keep surviving. But now, survival may depend on something beyond instinct. Because somewhere out there, someone knows exactly what's happening in the triangle of death. And until that person is found, the burros are still at risk.